Hello everybody and welcome to the Real Housewives Edit. My name is Elle and I am here to talk about the two loves of my life, editing and housewives. Well you guys, we are back in New Jersey. I'm also going to be covering Potomac, but I really wanted to cover New Jersey. I'm so excited today because I'm actually shooting on the day after Jersey actually showed on TV. So I have a fresh perspective and hopefully I can get a fresh perspective from you all as well. You guys know I absolutely love your comments. Thank you so much for subscribing. I looked at the app today and we actually hit 4,300 subscribers, which is beyond my wildest dreams. You guys know I have this goal of hitting 10,000 subscribers this year. I'm not on track for it, but listen, we're gonna get as far as we can. You guys know the saying, shoot for the moon and you'll hit the stars. Stars aren't that bad, so hopefully we will get somewhere. That's fun. Honestly, 4,300, if that was the number I got this year, I would be thrilled. I'm so excited that all of you have such great input. I absolutely love your comments. Keep them coming. I ask for them throughout the video, but I also miss just like general comments. You can comment on what I ask about, but also just like, tell me your thoughts on the season. Tell me your thoughts on just life. Tell me anything. I love reading about what you guys are doing. So without further ado, let's jump right into the scene in the Real Housewives of New Jersey.
I am true to myself. I am living in my heart. I am strong.
So what's so great is they're showing, sort of these establishing shots and a little bit of B-roll. And as we're seeing this B-roll, we are hearing Teresa doing, I guess they're like kind of affirmations or a prayer or something. So they show her big, beautiful house. Oh my gosh, that house is gigantic. It's crazy. Her and Louis are like, yeah, it looks like a palace. They have sort of like this Zen type of garden feel. So it's kind of setting the scene really for like, we are seeing the new Teresa. This is the new leaf Teresa has turned over. She's more Zen, she's more trying to live in the moment. And so that's what they're really doing. They're setting the stage. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know why they're setting the stage with this is because there's obviously going to be contrast. At the beginning, you hear the pre-lap of her voice saying, I am this, I am that, and trying to, do her affirmations. But we know coming down the pike, she's going to be talking about this bad situation with her sister-in-law and her brother.
I am strong.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, honey. What are you doing?
I'm going down the shore, so I have to eat something. What are you doing?
I was just journaling.
Okay, so what I think is interesting what they do is they sort of finish off that thing with Teresa saying, I think she's like praying to this statue, or she said she's journaling, but she's at this statue. Anyway, and all of a sudden Gia walks in, they show the Teresa intro, and then the music sort of resolves, and then Teresa says, what you doing? Picture Gia walking in, picture the intro with Teresa, and picture the music kind of continuing as it was, right? If the music continued as it was, we as an audience might go, oh, this is gonna like kind of a filler scene. Like, Gia's walking in, hey, what you doing? I'm doing this, maybe something nice and light. I'm going down here, I'm going to see whatever. But the fact that the music stops, we see the intro and then Gia sits down, it's really setting us up like, this is not just a filler scene. This isn't just a packing scene or just a scene where it's like, kind of light, fluffy, like mom-daughter stuff. This is gonna be a little bit deeper. And those are really cues from the music and sort of that intro piece coming in as well.
Journaling.
You would love this. Want to try a bite of my salad?
No, I don't want any. Thank you. I want to lose 10 more pounds before the wedding.
Oh, it's salad.
Okay, so you can see how the music there really made Gia's line more funny.
Oh, it's salad.
Obviously, she was kind of doing this deadpan, like, why would this make you gain weight? It's salad, right? But the music is kind of going like, da, 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 like a train. It's kind of moving. And then as soon as she says the line, the music stops. It's almost giving a button to her punchline, if you will. So you'll see that a lot. You'll see music kind of helping out whether, they're trying to make something feel more dramatic or making something feel funnier. And they definitely did it here. They took the music out to make that moment feel a little bit funnier.
Hey, babe. Hey, G. How are you, babe?
Hi, honey. How are you? Oh my God, the wedding's coming up. So I'm like kind of freaking out a little bit.
Everything's gonna look beautiful. It's gonna be fine.
But like,
okay, so they have Teresa kind of talking about this light, easy breezy stuff. Every time I see Teresa in a scene like this, I feel like, okay, on my last video, I talked about how I think Teresa is very unaware of the cameras. Also, I got so many mixed emotions on my last video talking about this new friend of Jen. I want to make it very clear that I think Jen is probably an amazing person and probably very fun to hang out with. And there were a lot of moments that I thought were like funny. She said like little funny asides. I just felt personally from a storyline standpoint, when editors start showing us stuff that feels really contrived, we as the audience can tend to trust less. So I wasn't just like trying to go hard on her, although I was kind of going hard on her as well. I wasn't just trying to like, you know, be mean to her. I just really don't like that for the franchise. I think it's a franchise killer. I don't know about you guys, but you know, in Dallas, I really felt like Leanne Locken kind of started to lean into like contriving moments and saying things that she thought would become like memes. My weave is exhausted, all that stuff. People loved it. I personally didn't like it. It felt like it was like, to me, she was putting something on or she was writing lines for herself. And I honestly feel like it started the demise of that franchise because I thought she was a really strong housewife. I know she was like very problematic and that's why she left. But I do feel like that was starting the kind of the downfall. Other places I can say definitely in Salt Lake City, I feel like when people contrive storylines, beyond just like the contriving, the normal kind of contriving of a storyline, when someone really feels like they're smarter than the audience. One of you amazing commenters said it, and you were referencing Candace from Potomac, strangely enough, saying they were tap dancing on the viewer's intelligence. And that to me is like just the perfect way to put it. Tap dancing on our intelligence, thinking that they can come up with storylines or comedic moments that we don't see through is just can really, it can bring something down. So that was my whole thing, just so you guys know. I'm sure she's a very nice woman. Here in this moment, when I watch this type of scene and I see Teresa kind of starting with light moments, you know, she's talking about the wedding. Oh, this is happening. It's coming right up, right? It's very like easy breezy. I'm just like, she is such a pro. She knows how to do this. But also I want you guys to check in that this is kind of how we live, right? If you are in a situation where maybe you have to bring something up that's more tense, like to your partner or family member or whatever, usually you don't just go right into it. You usually start with lighter stuff, pleasantries, you kind of like soften the room a little bit. And I do believe that that's what Teresa's doing. I do think she really wants to talk about this Melissa stuff to Louis and her daughter.
The other day, I ended up talking at Danielle's house. I said, guys, for the wedding, should I do assigned seating?
So I just want you guys to hear that little bit of manipulation that they did with the dialogue. A lot of times when we speak to our family or our friends or whatever, we'll speak in shorthand, right? Or we'll just kind of say something and they know the implication, right? But in editorial, when a scene is happening and for time's sake, you can't put in all the context, or obviously there's, you know, you can't just put the implication in there because maybe we don't know the implication because we're not there at the scene. They have to kind of manipulate dialogue so we know what she's talking about. So I want you to listen to it again.
The other day, I ended up talking at Danielle's house. I said, guys, for the wedding.
Where she says the wedding, I know they slipped that audio in from somewhere else. Maybe it was way earlier in the scene or way later. Something in there was kind of cut apart, and you can see they got the coverage from the other people in the scene so that it wouldn't look weird, you know, coming out of her mouth if they were obviously like cutting up that dialogue. I think this is where a lot of people go like, oh, editors can do whatever they want with dialogue. It's like, no, not. I mean, of course you could string together a sentence and make it look, you know, like someone's saying something that they're not. But I do believe like in this sort of situation, they need to remind the audience, this is about the wedding. This is, you know, regarding the wedding. So they kind of slip that little piece of audio in there.
Melissa brought up the engagement party. She was like, oh, you said I lied? And I'm like, yeah.
Coming from the liar herself.
And it's like, why?
Okay, so in that as well, you can hear the audio of Louis. They bring it in when he says,
Coming from the liar herself.
You can hear that what they did was everyone's got a mic on, right? Everyone's got a mic pack on. They're gonna be editing Teresa, you know, speaking, so they want her mic kind of on top. And then they bring in Louis' mic and you can kind of hear the difference. It's so subtle, but if you guys just listen to it and you put on your nerd goggles, you can hear the slight difference that it's not just coming in like naturally, through her mic. It's coming in, they're bringing up his mic, in the edit to kind of make sure that we can hear what he says. The other thing that was interesting about this cut here was how they cut to Gia and she's kind of nodding as Teresa's saying, the lying thing, right? And I was like, I wonder if that's the exact reaction that Gia was actually having, or if they took another reaction from her, because it almost looks like she's agreeing to something. And I think she is agreeing to the fact that, there was lying going on. But I felt in that moment like it was a different type of agreeing. I don't know how to explain it really, but I was just wondering about Gia's reaction, if that was actually what happened in that moment. Tell me guys what you guys think. I'd love to hear. It's not really that important. I just like to look at it.
I bring this up like months later.
It's just sad that she has to try to make up this lie to make you look bad.
Hi.
Okay, so you can see that, I have a feeling that conversation between Gia and her mom was so much longer, but really they got to the meat of it. And that's really what a great editor can do. They can get to the meat of what the conversation is about, right? So Teresa says the thing, this is what I brought up to Melissa, right? And then they cut straight to Gia and she has this great line saying, it's just sad that they have to lie about stuff, whatever, to make you look bad. Okay, now we have a real strong thesis sentence. Of course, could they continue to show them back and forth talking about the situation, which I guarantee happened? Like, there had to have been more in there than what just the two of them saying that to each other. But now they're going to bring in Gabriella, which is, to me, was such a strong point in the scene and why I wanted to bring this up. Oh, we'll get to it. I'm not going to get into it until let's watch.
Hi, honey.
How you doing?
How was school?
It was good.
Gabriella, I'm sorry. Like, I know you don't get involved with all the drama and stuff, but I was just saying the other day, I ended up talking to Melissa.
Okay, I want you guys to look at how much they put the camera on Gabriella and how intentional that is from an editor's perspective. If I was editing this, I would have done this exact cut. I think it was so genius. They kept going back to her. They take the camera from Gia to her. They cut to her while she's just listening. They give her a chyron to make sure, remind us, because she's never really been on camera that much, which is why it becomes so powerful when she does come on camera. There's a reason why this clip right here, where she's talking about Melissa and Joe, became like all over my Instagram feed, because it's so much more powerful when it comes from someone who isn't constantly like trying to get on camera or wants to be on camera or trying to talk or trying to insert their opinion. It's just really powerful. I think it's also powerful from Gia, but it's super powerful from Gabriella, because we I can't remember ever really hearing her or seeing her in a scene or anything like that. I just feel like she's been so in the background, probably, just from her personality, and it just makes it so much more powerful, and the editors know that, so they keep cutting back to her, and we'll watch it in this scene.
And she kind of pulled me in,
Well, how did you leave things?
We ended up coming to an understanding, and
Okay, so I want you guys to see that cut there. So she says, she ended up pulling me in, and then it cuts straight to Gabriella saying, so
Well, how did you leave things?
I can guarantee you, just because of I'm sure you guys know how life works. I'm sure Teresa told the whole story of what went on at the pool, but do we need to see that? Absolutely not. I'm sure there was a world where Teresa was telling the story and they were like, okay, let's put flashbacks in and stuff. And maybe they were just like, you know what, that cut, we don't really need it. It just happened. We even had the tail end of that scene at the beginning of this episode. No one's forgotten. Maybe if they hadn't at the beginning of this episode had the tail end of the scene on there, maybe they would have done flashbacks and shown her talking a little bit more about it. But instead, since it was right just 10 minutes ago or something, we just watched it happen, they're like, let's just cut to the chase, right? So they cut straight from her saying, this to Gabriella's line. And I can just tell you guys, there was a lot in there, a lot of more filler on that story that we definitely didn't need to see because we already saw it.
actually asked her to be in my wedding. And then, she said no.
I wish you never asked her that.
Okay, so Here, of course, they need to put this part in where she asks, you know, she's telling him that they asked her because it's a huge plot point of this actual scene, right? So she says, you know, I asked her. The music kind of comes in. It's kind of this curious little tone to it. It's got a kind of a suspenseful feeling for us. We're not sure how to feel. How are the girls going to feel? All of those things are kind of going through our heads. We get this great reaction from Gia, and then now we're getting this great line from her, sort of like, I wish you hadn't have done that. And this is huge for us. I mean, this whole scene is a total lean-in moment because although we know, you know, how Gia feels about Joe, we haven't seen Gia and Gabriella together talking about this as much.
I asked her that because, I mean, not for nothing, like, you're still upset with the fact that she said that, like, she was there for us.
When she's in prison, Joe wasn't working at all, so they had no income.
That Teresa went to prison show was able to be made.
Wow. Okay, when they did this flashback to this podcast, I was, wow, I don't know. I was just totally in shock. I've actually heard this. I've seen it on Instagram, people talking about this podcast, but I was just like, and they left it in for so long. I was like, wow, the editors, they're not manipulating to make them look like villains, but they are really leaning hard into like, let's clue the audience in on things that have really been going down. Because this, I just watched this twice and I was like, I can't even imagine getting on a podcast and talking about my family at all in a bad way, especially talking about my sister or my sibling going away to prison and how it was there for their children. To me, I got like a shudder down my spine. I was like, this is like beyond should be like behind closed doors. But the fact that they're on this podcast, her podcast, right? Talking about this stuff, I was like, oh yeah. And I do believe the editors knew that was going to be the reaction from some of us because they continue to let this clip play out for a long time.
Because Joe needed to make money on that show and he needed someone to film with. And here we were that jumped in.
The only times we really saw them was when we were on camera together.
I want to say thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm saying thank you.
You know,
Okay, wow. So they basically cut from that podcast. And it's like receipts. That's all the editors are doing here, right? So they cut to the podcast. We're like, oh, right? They cut to a Gia confessional, which absolutely loved seeing a Gia confessional. I know some of you guys, people don't like the kids getting involved, but I think she's old enough. I think she's an adult now. So I think having her input in this is important, you know, important to the whole storyline. As tired as we are of this storyline, it's important to get her side of things, I think. So they cut to that. She's saying the only time we saw them was it was on camera. And then they have this flashback. And you can see in the flashback, obviously they pull the color out. They kind of fade the color down. It's shocking to see it now. Now, this was in 2015, right? They're reminding us this is in 2015. I'm sure when we were watching it in 2015, we were like, oh, like, no big deal. They're just, you know, she's saying thank you. That was probably actually a really tender moment. But now, I mean, perspective is a B, right? Like now looking back at it and she's like, thank you so much for coming. And there's this little look on his face as he says like, you know, I'd run on water for you or something. I don't know if you guys caught it, but it just, or maybe I'm totally reading it wrong, but it felt like, sort of like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean, thank you for coming? We're here all the time, sort of thing. But like he was worried. And then they cut to Melissa and I see that same sort of worried look on her face, like almost like it's like this tiny little hint of panic. Like, don't mention that we haven't been over here until now. Like, that was the vibe I got. I don't know about you guys, but that was watching this. But I'm sure I watched this in real time. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. They're there for her, you know?
water for you, right?
I really can't remember any other time when I saw them.
Why did she say that?
Okay, so it's interesting. So during her confessional, we go back and we're even looking at Gabriella, and Gabriella's got like a smile on her face, but kind of that uncomfortable smile. Let's keep watching.
Why did she say that?
I don't. To look like a good aunt.
But like in what context?
Attention.
You guys would come see me every.
So the interesting thing again about Gabriella and why we keep kind of coming back to her in this scene, like why she's asking that, like why did she say that? You know, she's not just saying like, why did she say that? Of course she tried to look good, but like what was the context, right? there's something super reliable about Gabriella. I don't know what you guys think. I don't know how old she is. She's young, but she just seems there's like a stable kind of like calm energy to her, and she seems like super smart. So when she's asking these questions, I honestly feel like she's like our anchor in this scene. I mean, Gia is so smart. I mean, I love the girls so much. I love all the kids, but I just feel like there's something anchoring about her presence. And when she asks that, and she's like, in what context? I feel like I was like, yeah, what is the context? Like, what was she trying to say? What is she trying to prove? What are we doing here? Like, what is happening?
See me every week and you would tell me who was there for me.
It's hurtful that someone says that just because, like, that was, like, about 5 years of my life. It was, like, a sensitive time.
So I thought it was interesting. Teresa said that line, and then they cut back to Gabriella saying this. It didn't feel like those two things really went together. I feel like there's a lot of exposition going on in this scene. Exposition is basically where there's a lot of telling of things that are happening to kind of clue the audience in, whether they're trying to do that or not. They're cluing us into a lot of stuff. When Teresa says that, I don't think the response was what Gabriella said, but I do think what Gabriella says here is super important, and that's why they left it in, and they started a new music cue.
It's hurtful that someone says that just because, like, that was, like, about 5 years of my life, and especially when it's not true. It's just...
We would remember the people that were there.
You remember, and, like, credit shouldn't be given where it's not earned. That directly affects me.
So they let her talk throughout that entire little sequence. They cut to Gia, we cut to Teresa's reactions. Obviously Teresa's really hurt. It's really hard to see your child hurt. You can tell there's something, I think Gabriella is one of those that like keeps a stone face, and there's a lot going on under the surface. And so I think it's like a really pretty powerful monologue there. They could have cut this up. They could have just taken one line from there and then continued on with the conversation. But like I said, I think the editors really wanted to lean into the Gabriella stuff because it is super powerful on screen.
Directly, so it's something I take to heart.
Oh my God, I see, look at her neck. She's like breaking out in hives.
I think you're like stressed right now.
So at the end of her monologue, the music stopped.
Directly, so it's something I take to heart.
And then you have this even stronger reaction than like her saying like, are you okay, sweetheart, or anything like that. She's like, oh my gosh, like I'm worried about you, right? To me, when I saw that and I saw her neck, and you can see it, she's getting red and her face is getting red. Like we all have friends like that who get red like in their complexion when they feel, you know, a heightened emotion or whatever, or feel, you know, sad. And you cannot fake that. You know, you can fake tears all day long. Anyone can fake tears all day long, or feeling like, oh, I'm so mad. But that sort of reaction, I was like, whoa, okay, I believe you. You know what I mean? Like, not like I didn't believe her before, but I was like, talk about a reliable narrator for this whole thing. I mean, to me now, there's no question in my mind that they weren't there for those girls, because she says it, like I would have, you know, and Gia says it, I would have known. So anyway, from an editorial standpoint, they really hang the camera on her. They really show this whole moment. This is really Gabriella's scene, if there was any, you know.
Right now.
They're lying.
And that's it, and Melissa's her godmother. How dare she even say that?
I don't think she puts one left foot and right foot in front of the other without her husband knowing.
Okay, so you can see here, even as Louis jumping into this conversation and honestly, to me, kind of fueling this fire, which I think is interesting. I'm like, okay, Louis, like, I feel like everyone kind of has blamed for years Melissa for fueling the fire with Joe, maybe behind the scenes. Although I do feel like at the beginning of it, Melissa was like, go talk to your sister. Let's figure this out. Let's do this. But maybe, and then people are like, that was fake. But here I'm like, now this is like, he needs to like take a few steps back. In my opinion, this has nothing to do with editorial, but I'm like, you are not helping the situation. Like maybe you should come in with a little bit more of a neutral thing. But that's just my opinion. But as he's starting, they keep cutting back to Gabriella again, because she is the strongest character in this scene. She's someone we have not seen a lot. She's super reliable because she doesn't like to be on camera. It's not like she's looking for her moment. And because of her emotional reaction to the situation, it's powerful.
Blind together to go down this road to just hurt you.
I know.
You okay?
It's just, yeah. It's just hurtful.
You literally have one family member.
It's interesting there, and this isn't really editorial, but just storyline wise, you know, as Teresa's feeling sad, that she's staring at her daughters. And I find that to be really poignant. That's who she is connecting to in this little exchange. Even though Louie's there, we know she loves Louis, he's in the love bubble. He's like asking her, consoling her, are you okay? But she's really focused on her daughters. And I just find that to be a really interesting thing. It's kind of like when you start, something is going on in your head and you're really thinking about it and it's really affecting you, you really turn your attention to the person that you kind of care the most about. I don't know how to explain this, but I'm sure you guys will do better in the comments. But there's something about this, like where she's connecting to her daughters in this moment of feeling this sadness. And, you know, from editorial standpoint, they really let that moment kind of pan out, right? Where she's kind of looking at her daughters. You see the emotion welling up in her eyes. It's just interesting.
You literally did.
That's it. Like, I lost my parents.
It's like making me tear up. It's sad.
Because it is sad. It's disgusting. I'm so sorry that you're treated this way. And I cannot take watching this.
So that was an interesting, you know, moment. Like Gia is like, it's sad. And then you hear Louis, we don't see him, but he says,
It's sad.
Because it is sad.
and then they jump right to him being like, it's disgusting. I feel like there was more kind of said in there that they cut out and they had him just go right into it's disgusting. You can also hear the music change. The music change becomes a little bit more dangerous.
I'm so sorry that you're treated this way. And
It becomes a little bit more dramatic, a little bit like, I don't know, it just has a little bit more weight to it. Before it kind of had this curious tone and sort of this lighter tone and maybe a little bit of sentimentality to it. But here it feels like the anger is coming, and the anger comes as Louis is talking. If it had just been a moment between Gia and her mom and Gabriella, it probably would have stayed that lighter tone because they're really talking about how like, it's sad, we went through it, you know, it's really sad that it's come to this, it's really sad that they have to lie about this type of stuff. They seem genuinely hurt. Louis just seems like there's a bruised ego or something. I don't know. I don't know. I'm on the fence with Louis because I feel like there's a part of me that's like, oh, he's good for Teresa, and I hear the people say he's good for Teresa. But I also think that like when someone's in a new relationship, which let's be fair, this is a new relationship between Teresa and Louis. They've been together like 2 years or 3 years or something, which is, I don't know. I think it's a newer relationship. I'm not saying they don't know each other. It's just newer. And of course they got married. They moved really fast with it. But I think everyone in a new relationship starts to be on their best behavior if it's a decent relationship between two people. Like I feel like people do better, you know? I think Teresa's like being a better person because she is in a new relationship with a new guy and she's, you know, it's best foot forward time, if you will. Those out there who have, 10 years or so on the relationship, the best foot forward times, you know, you have to work at them. Let's put it that way. So anyway, I feel like when people say, you know, he's good for Teresa, I personally just think like a stable relationship is good for Teresa. You know, attention is good for Teresa. She didn't get much attention with Joe before. I just feel like those things are good. I don't know. He just seems like he's really leaning into this stuff. I can tell you, well, I'm not just using my husband, but I know my husband would stay far away from this. If this was the situation, he would never even say an ill word. I don't know about you guys. Put it in the comments below. This is like a controversial thing. Like, is he or isn't he with Louis? I don't think he's a bad guy. I'm not crazy about this whole thing. Okay, opinion done.
Take watching this man be like this and act like dude, you don't think I see you? I see you a mile away.
Like at this point, it's kind of like
So that's where I say there's kind of like an ego thing. Is I think he's more just upset that like this guy is like, he's that whole thing that guys say like, I see you, like, oh, remember Candy said that. We see each other. But I think it's very like, I see you, like, don't think you're getting away with anything. Because I'm a man. I'm a bigger man than you. I don't know. It's just very like, I don't know.
point, it's kind of like the train's got to stop.
Coming up.
Okay, so I thought that was really interesting because they have the music kind of crescendoing, right? After Louis kind of has his like angry moment, then you cut to Gia and she's like, this train has to stop. Basically like, I want this to stop. I don't want to hear about this anymore. I don't want these lies to be out there. I don't want this anymore. They have to stop it. And then the kind of violins come in as she's saying this, and it's crescendoing, and then it resolves. But it's interesting that the last shot that they put right after she says this train has to stop, they go to Louis and they kind of push in on him a little bit, if you see that. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are they trying to tell us? Could they be saying with that Louis is the one to stop the train? Okay, because we know we have a scene, you know, between him and Joe coming up. Or is it they're trying to say he is the train? Like, stop pushing and helping this continue to go forward. If the train has to stop, like, help it stop. Not in the way of, like, you know, facing off with Joe Gorga, but help, you know, through Teresa. Or are they not saying anything like that at all and the editors just used it? But in my very humble opinion, all I've seen throughout all of these years is the editors know all, and they really are foreshadowing through their cuts. And that cut right there, having it be him when it was a scene all about Teresa and her daughters, why did they end on him with a push-in? You tell me in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all of the things, and until next time.
And all of a sudden, I see Chris. So he comes over a little, you know, so for like a good 2 minutes, I'm just like looking straight. But you know, you can see someone from the side.